Our bonds don't need to fade after we lose a loved one. Oh, no, 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 no. In fact, we can cultivate continued bonds and connection with our loved ones after they've gone. It's obviously not going to be the same as when they were here, but I know from my own experience as a bereaved mother, as well as from the hundreds of grievers that I support, just how powerful continuing our bonds can be. So in today's episode, we are going to be doing one of my favorite continuing bonds grief rituals. This is a part of my series on Death on the Daily, where we do grief rituals together. So instead of me giving you instructions, I am going to be today hands in the soil, and we are going to be flowing together. And even though we're not together in person, hopefully you can feel a little bit of that connection and perhaps a little bit of my support that's flowing through the screen all the way to you. Because I know how difficult grief is. And I also know how it's made even more difficult in our world that is not built for us grievers. And I know how lonely and isolating that can feel. And it's part of my passion to help grievers to find gentle presence and connection with their grief, but also to feel crucially like they're not doing it alone. And so in today's episode, this is a continuing bonds ritual. It is one of my favorite rituals to keep a connection to my daughter through the sacred time that I will carve out. And in today's grief ritual, you're going to be writing a letter to your loved one. You're going to let any words flow out onto the page that feel meaningful and right for you in this moment. Then you're going to get your hands into the soil and you are going to place that letter at the bottom of a plant pot and then plant some seeds on top of it. So for today's grief ritual, all you're going to need is a pen and some paper. You are going to need a plant pot. You're also going to need some soil. Doesn't need to be put in a bowl all nice like this, just from the compost bag or wherever you're getting it from is all good, as well as some seeds. And I'll explain my seeds very soon, and some water to be able to nourish those seeds once they're planted, as well as hopefully a little cup of tea or something to nourish you as well. So let's talk a little bit about continuing bonds theory of grief. This was first developed by Klaas, Silverman and Nickman in the 1990s. And this set out that counter to the popular narrative in our society that we want to move on from grief, and with that, we want to detach from our connection with our loved ones. In fact, what they found through their research was that it was healthy and supportive for our grief to maintain a continued connection, that bond with our loved ones. Now, of course, that's not going to look the same as it was when they were here with us. So one of the beautiful and oftentimes tender parts of continuing our bonds is really in us exploring how do we want to continue those connections and how do our relationships with our loved ones change as a result of them not being here. And I love continuing bonds. My journey is that of a bereaved mother, and I maintain my connection to my daughter, whose name is Ngākau Raiona, every single day in some way. That's not necessarily doing a big ritual like this. It also includes a lot of tiny little moments of connecting to her, just thinking about her, talking to her. Those are just as meaningful as doing this. But I also know how beautiful and powerful it can be in our grief to carve out the sacred space to be able to tend to our grief, to be able to connect into it, and as well to continue our bonds through these slightly bigger ritual moments. And I've been doing my grief rituals since my daughter died. It's one that started in the ceremony around her leaving us and her burial. So the seeds that I'm going to be planting today are yellow pot marigolds. So the reason why the pot marigold is so meaningful to me, to my husband, when it comes to our daughter, is that in the weeks before her burial, and she was buried in a most beautiful woodland burial ground, in those weeks before, we were walking our dogs, and every morning we would go past a little marigold plant that was growing through the crack in a pavement. And this marigold plant was yellow, and I'd never seen a yellow pot marigold in my life. I'd only seen the orange ones. So I was loving that. And with my daughter's name, Ngākau Raiona means lioness heart in her and her daddy's Māori language. And so with her being a lioness-spirited little being, yellow became her color. So as soon as I saw that flower, I thought, oh, I really hope I can get enough of the blooms of this flower to make a beautiful garland for her that also links to my Hindu heritage. On the day of her burial, and that was the day before the autumn equinox in 2023, there were about 15 different bright yellow blooms on this plant. I was so grateful. I think it was about 5 or 6 of them, and I sewed them together into a garland that went around her neck. So at the end of the season, I watched the remainder of those flowers going back into the seed, and I patiently waited. And then I gathered some of those seeds, I kept them. And these seeds are descendants of those seeds. Each year I plant from the same flower that is my daughter's flower, and I feel such a beautiful connection to her. But the invitation is here that you do not need to have something that is so deeply connected to that moment in time. You can pick up any packet of seeds from the gardening center or from the supermarket, and that is beautifully meaningful. What I will say is do choose your seeds and let yourself just flow with, is there a plant that they loved? Is there a plant that you love? Is there a plant that maybe makes you think of certain memories? If not, it might be what's in season right now that I can plant that feels really beautiful for me. Or it could be that you want this to be a little ritual. I've worked with some grievers where they've taken this ritual, they've made it their own, and now whenever they plant any seeds, including the veggies for the garden, they will write a little note to their loved one, plant it underneath, and then they will watch the new life that blooms through their words under the soil. So make this your own, choose your seeds, and then let's get writing and let's get planting. And as we start this ritual, I want to give you the invitation to just take a breath and just meet yourself exactly where you are today. You are your very best guide in your grief. So as well, the invitation with every single grief ritual that I will be sharing in this series that you can come back to time and time again is to really listen within, to understand, does this feel right for me today? And if not, that's all good. You can bookmark this episode, come back to it, perhaps when you feel like you've got the resource to do so. Or you can sit back and watch me doing this and just soak up the vibes and the conversation, and then you can come to this in your own time. So step 1 of this grief ritual is writing your letter. We're just going to take a minute or 2 and you're going to write some words onto the page. You can pause this video as well and take as much time as you need to, because sometimes you might want to write a little bit more. My invitation is this: there is no right or wrong words. And these words don't have to be perfect. Just anything that you wish to share from your heart to your loved one in this moment. So if you want to join me, grab your pen, grab your paper. I've got some in lioness hearted yellow for my daughter, and let's get writing. completes our letter writing. And if you need more time, please do pause this video right now. I love letter writing and continuing bonds. There's nothing more beautiful for me than letting my words flow out of my head and my heart and my body onto the page. And with that as well, being able to see where perhaps my words take me to expressions of my love that I haven't consciously been thinking about. That's what really came up for me as I was writing these words. And whatever you've written, know that it's absolutely beautiful, and know that it's so nourishing and supportive for you to have done this ritual for both yourself and your loved one. And if you struggle to write anything, even just one line of "I miss you, I love you" can be so beautiful to do. So next up, we're going to be placing everything into the pot. So step 2 is get your hands in the dirt, or use a spade or a spoon. I love getting my hands dirty. Place some of the compost. I feel like it needs to be given a little bit more reverence than that. Place some of the compost into the pot. I don't know if you can see, but it's just a little bit, about an inch or 2 at the bottom of the pot. And if it gets messy and soily, hopefully you're doing this somewhere that's not like I am, which is right in the middle of my kitchen on the table. But if you are, that's just beautiful. And next up, you are going to just fold up your letter. Fold it up small, or however much you want to, however is right for your pot. And then you're going to place the letter, I'm just going to do one more fold, into the bottom of your pot. If you can see that, it's right there. So then we are next going to fill up the pot with the soil. So just put soil till it's about an inch or so, maybe a centimetre or so from the top of the pot. Just fill that up. I love getting my hands in the soil. Just makes me feel so connected to nature, and being a bit messy about it also makes me feel happy. Then next up, we are going to plant our seeds. And I love marigold seeds because they connect me to my Hindu culture. And in Hindu culture, they are used a lot through ceremony, but also they are used within funerals. We had my Amama, my Sri Lankan grandmother's funeral last year, and marigold garlands were a really important part of that, and draping them on her body to send her on the way. And marigold seeds very much represent the sun. They represent our spiritual journey in Hinduism. But they're also used in other cultures, including in Mexican culture, Dia de los Muertos. And on the ofrendas, the altars, there are marigold flowers that are placed with their scent and their vibrancy, thought to to light the path for the spirit of our loved ones to come and find us, to come back into our homes with us. And there's many, many other cultures where marigolds are very, very important. Pot marigolds, that these are slightly different to the ones that are used in Hinduism and in Mexican culture. But again, choose the flower that is either meaningful for you or just feels beautiful or right or aligned for this time of year. And if you're doing this in, for example, midwinter, or at another time where maybe it's not the right time to plant seeds, have a little bit of a search online and see what feels right. What might be in season? Is it seeds or is it bulbs? Or perhaps do you want to write your letter and then maybe just plant it out somewhere in nature? So now we're going to plant the seeds. So for marigold seeds, and look up online what the instructions are, but for marigold seeds, it's planting them, it's about, I think, 1/4 of an inch deep. I am not a gardening content creator, so definitely don't come to me for that expertise and double check this. But I'm just going to put little indent prints into the soil. And then in each of the little indent prints, I am going to put one seed in each of them. Sometimes you might like to put 2 seeds, but because I'm packing these in to this pot, I'm putting one in each of these little fingerprints. Just putting lots of these marigold seeds in, which is just beautiful. And even at every single stage, I love to connect into what I'm doing and the meaning behind it, the rebirth and the new life that's going to come through my grief, which really represents for me the cycle of life in death and in rebirth, and the fact that there is always these new seeds of blooming and new beginnings that do come through our grief. perhaps in how we grow and change and transform through our grief, where we focus our energies into, knowing that death and grief have taught us that this life is precious. So really, for me, at each stage, it's about just taking a breath and connecting into the meaning. So now I've got my seeds all in the pot. Now you're just going to cover over the soil, or if it's a seed where you need to just sprinkle a little bit of soil over it, you might like to just do that. Again, getting your hands in the soil. And the final stage of this is nourishing these seeds, giving them a little bit of hydration, a little bit of water to help them to seed and sprout. And if you've got compost, hopefully that will also give them a lot of really good nutrients. So I've got a little beaker of water because my watering can is way too big to have on this table and probably would soak everything, but just nourishing your seeds with some water. And again, just connecting into that. You, as you are nourishing and nurturing these seeds, but also your continued connection and bond with your loved ones, and how beautiful that is. And then the final stages of this is for you to nurture your seeds. So going forwards, making sure that you're checking to see, is the soil dry? Okay, I need to give it some water. Each week, maybe giving it a little bit of fertilizer that is right for the plants and the flowers that you're growing. Then as they bloom, really soaking it up, enjoying every single step of that, including if there's flowers when they come through, and perhaps also being able to take those flowers and maybe using them, whether it's in grief rituals or putting them in a little vase, and just enjoying this continued connection and bond, but knowing that your words are underneath the surface of those soil. Those words have, in their own way, really infused into the growing and the blooming of these seeds, which is a beautiful metaphor as well for when we tend to our grief, the beauty and the growth that can bloom. So keep coming back to your plant, keep nurturing them, keep enjoying them, keep that continued connection. And every time you connect into that plant, you can also obviously connect into the memory of your loved ones. You could even say their name. You could speak some words to them in addition to the ones that are buried in the pot, that are held by nature. And you can obviously also just keep doing this time and time again. If you want to plant some more seeds or bulbs and write some more letters, then you are so welcome to do so. And this is obviously a ritual that you can come back to time and time again. You can plant more seeds. You can cover your garden in seeds that are planted on top of your words to your loved one. And if you love doing this together, then you can always come back to this episode, bookmark it, and come back time and time again, and we can plant some seeds together. As well as you can also subscribe to my channel so you will never miss another one of my grief rituals or any of my episodes of Death on the Daily. But as we come to completion on this grief ritual, I, with my hand on my heart, just want to honor you for showing up for you, for showing up for your grief, and for planting some beautiful seeds in your grief. And wherever you are in your grief journey, know that I am always here. Death on the Daily is always here. I'm right alongside in griefy solidarity, and I'm sending you so much love. Thank you for joining me on Death on the Daily. If you liked this episode, it would mean a lot if you could hit subscribe. Plus, head to the show notes to find out about my work as a grief coach, and there's a grief journaling freebie there for you. Until we meet here next time, take good care of yourself and others.
There's a cold fire, there's a crossfire, and there's something